The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
I was not aware, but we are, again, we're going to investigate it fully. There's not going to be any rock that remains unturned.
Tonight on Politics Now, a deadly work shooting leads to questions at City Hall. The suspect and victim, City of Las Vegas workers.
Was this a blunder? They should have come to us in the first place.
A deal with Iran, the latest on where things stand, and reaction from Capitol Hill. And a possible gold standard, why Clark County says Switch's data centers should be a model for the rest of the country.
You're watching Politics Now with John Langler on 8 News Now.
Thank you for joining us. Metro Police say it is a case of workplace violence. That workplace, the City of Las Vegas Maintenance Department. Detectives believe an employee killed his colleague, the end of a months-long saga between the two. And now questions are being asked about transfer requests by the pair, which were apparently rejected and could have prevented the shooting. 8 News Now reporter Aaron Ariano brought those questions to Mayor Shelley Berkley.
2 city maintenance workers reportedly fighting for months. Each tried to transfer out but was denied by management. That's according to city employees I spoke with. I asked Mayor Berkley if the city will investigate this.
We will get to the bottom of this, and whatever we find out will be public. Right now, I don't have an answer for you, but yes, of course, we're looking into something like this.
Las Vegas Mayor Shelley Berkley adamant the city is working to figure out why city maintenance worker Joey McLean was shot dead at work. Police say by his own co-worker, Bryson Kim.
This is a tragedy but both families are destroyed. It's heartbreaking, but this is hopefully a one-off.
But this sudden act of violence is not a one-off, according to employees. Several city maintenance workers spoke to 8 News Now about a toxic workplace culture, those workers putting most of the blame on management, who they say refused to transfer Joey McLean and Bryson Kim, despite knowing how often they clashed at work. Both men reporting each other to HR several times before a dangerous confrontation the Monday before the shooting.
As these two were leaving work, they were verbally going at it again, and to the point where they swerved their vehicles into each other.
This comes as 8 News Now obtained new audio of city workers appearing to confront management in a meeting just days after the shooting.
Why weren't they separated, the two guys? Moved to different yards. A guy killed another guy. You knew that there was a problem. If somebody comes to you, say they have a problem with their coworker and they want to be moved, what steps is going to be in the future to make that happen?
Because a life was taken. But this could have easily been prevented.
Mayor Berkley says she never caught wind of what was going on in that department.
I was not aware, but we are, again, we're going to investigate it fully. There's not going to be any rock that remains unturned. There's no reason to hide this.
As mayor, because you are a leader of the city, do you think it's a problem that you weren't aware? Because a lot of people in that department, it was an open secret that these 2 men were trying to transfer out. These 2 men were fighting openly.
I can only speak for myself. I did not know, and I'm not sure that an employee grievance would have come up to the level of the mayor, and in this case, it did not.
But she says she's open to making changes.
We need to make sure that it never happens again. The only way that you do that is to find out exactly what transpired. Any changes that are appropriate for the city to make, we will.
Bryson Kim's next arraignment is set for June 22nd to determine his bail. Aaron Ariano, 8 News Now.
In an arrest report, Kim told police he documented alleged harassment by McLean with the city. Kim said he was begging for help before the shooting. A potential deal ending the war with Iran. Both sides have agreed to a 60-day negotiating period over the country's nuclear program while the fighting stops. Vice President J.D. Vance says the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports is now off and oil again is flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. The deal also eases sanctions on Iran, lets the country resume oil exports, and includes $300 billion for Iran to rebuild.
We have all the cards. If the Iranians want the benefits of the bargain, they have to give us the things that are necessary to get those benefits.
Giving billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us is an exceptionally bad idea.
Meanwhile, on Friday, Israel and Hezbollah did agree to a ceasefire in Lebanon after fighting earlier on Friday and putting the deal all in jeopardy. It's all very much up in the air. The deal is in place, it's not in place. Another senator who has criticized the agreement, Nevada Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto. This week we discussed the Iran conflict, the DACA program delays, and removing red tape for green energy.
My initial response is, why were we there in the first place? What was the goal here? I am looking forward to seeing the final text because none of us have seen it yet. He's supposed to come to Congress, particularly when it involves any type of nuclear activity coming out of Iran. So I want to see it. But I question, why were we there? Why do we still have our men and women there? Why did we lose 13 lives? If all we're getting is we're giving billions of dollars to Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. And this is crazy. What was our exit? What was our intent for going in, and what was our exit strategy? That was a challenge this administration could never answer, and they would never come to Congress to talk to us about it, and they were required to. So I really have a lot of questions. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're bringing our men and women home. I want them to be safe. I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, but I also don't want to see them have billions of dollars to continue to fund their terrorist organization around the world, including coming after the United States and addressing. We really should be focused on our national security as well.
Earlier this week was the 14 years since DACA was created through the Obama administration. I think you and your office have been highlighting the fact that there's been delays, people trying to get renewals has been a challenge. What are you trying to, and what do you think needs to be done on a Senate level to address this situation?
Yeah, I think most people don't realize in my office, I am receiving calls and emails from DACA recipients in Nevada. There's over 10,000 DACA recipients. What does that mean? That means these individuals have been vetted. They have work permits. They're working in our communities. They're following the law. They're paying taxes, and they have to reapply for their DACA program to get that certification. They have been applying to get recertified, and the administration is slow rolling that process. And what does that mean? If they're slow rolling, it means that DACA recipients lose their work permits, lose their jobs. And then there's a change of circumstance in their immigration status. And I think it's intentional by the administration to slow roll it for that purpose so that they can deport DACA recipients who are our dreamers. That's exactly what's happening. This administration is doing everything they can to engage in this large-scale deportation, not just against those violent criminals like they claimed, but they're going after DACA recipients and dreamers who are not violent criminals.
I feel like every lawmaker I talk to talks about wanting to do something like this. Why is this kind of stuff put in place in the first place, and then why is it so hard to get rid of it when it's there?
Yeah, so let me explain. Tom Cotton and I introduced yesterday the Freedom Act, which is actually streamlining permitting reform for clean energy projects, for energy projects, right? We know that the future is really around clean energy. It's good for our national security. It's good for America. It creates jobs. It grows the economy. And what we have seen over the years, working together, we have passed a lot of legislation to incentivize this country moving in that direction. Unfortunately, there's a lot of red tape at the federal levels, particularly in Nevada, where federal government owns most of the land. So we need to streamline the process to be able to make sure these projects move, to be able to make sure that no administration can play politics with any project that's already been approved, right? And then for my purposes, it was to also make sure that as we're streamlining the process, we still have a NEPA review, we still have environmental overview, and we still have to have stakeholder input when these initial projects come forward. But it is important for us to give certainty to a lot of these programs and projects so that we can move them forward.
A mandate requires new solar and wind projects on public land to be personally approved by the Interior Secretary, and it has led to a huge bottleneck in those projects. As many as 95% of planned new power generation here in Nevada has been stalled. The primary is over. The November election's on the horizon. Political analysts expect record ad spending this year. Ad Impact projects the 2026 midterms will surpass spending for the 2024 presidential cycle. It projects a total of $11.6 billion in ad spending. The previous midterm record was $8.9 billion back in 2022. Expect the political ads to pick up once again in August. This week, the Public Utilities Commission heard from the public about NV Energy's rate changes, or its proposal to change how it calculates rates, switching to a daily demand charge. That charge, though, is on hold until January, so these public meetings can be held. NV Energy says it will recalculate your bill based on the highest 15 minutes of usage per day. For most customers, it'll be offset by a reduction in other parts of your bill. Critics, though, spoke out and protested the meeting.
Costs for everything are going up, which includes the cost for the poles and the infrastructure that the utility has to buy. And so case after case after case, I heard about this subsidy as a result of the way rates were designed.
Nobody knows how it's going to affect them, and everybody is really concerned about the uncertainty about it. It's complex.
NV Energy says this change will lower bills for about 90% of ratepayers. Rooftop solar users and high energy users will be in the 10% who will probably see their bills increase. Nevada Democratic Attorney General Aaron Ford is making that daily demand charge request a campaign issue. The AG's office has sued to stop it. Ford says his opponent, Republican Governor Joe Lombardo, is responsible for the charge. In a statement in response to that claim from Mr. Ford, the governor says the charge was made by independent regulators at the Public Utilities Commission, and the governor does not interfere with their processes or decisions made by experts in their particular field. Should point out the Public Utilities Commission approved the new charge, and PUC members are appointed by the governor's office. 2 of the 3 commissioners were appointed by former Governor Sisolak and then reappointed by Governor Lombardo. A court recently ruled against Ford's suit, saying the PUC does have the authority to make these decisions. Still, the Ford office is appealing to the state Supreme Court. Mr. Ford also is challenging Governor Joe Lombardo to 3 debates in the gubernatorial race. He's asking for live televised debates in Las Vegas and up in Reno, including one in Spanish on Spanish language television. Attorney General Ford turned down a primary debate request by his opponent in the Democratic primary, Alexis Hill. That would have been right here on Channel 8. Next on Politics Now, the data center debate. Clark County points to Switch as a gold standard. We'll look at the new project commissioners approved. And Nevada's eviction status, the latest numbers, and the push for new legislation.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Data centers have gotten plenty of attention recently, from Boulder City and Nye County to far-flung parts of the nation. This week, Clark County commissioners pointed to a local company as a gold standard. Commissioners approved a new data center from Switch on 9 acres of land in the South Valley. Switch has been taking advantage of this data center boom. It has more than 10 in southern Nevada already. Several others are in the works. Critics of these data centers include environmentalist groups like the Sierra Club. They want more research about the resources that data centers use on water and on power. Commissioners plan to discuss some new rules moving forward.
This particular item that before us is 100% renewable, is since 16 been using dry cooled, near 0 water consumption on this piece. The noise issues that may impact neighbors in other places don't apply here.
I don't think we can lump them in with a lot of the horror stories we're hearing over the country with data centers. I think this is an example of where we can look at what they're doing right. And I think it should be utilized throughout the country as an example.
Switch, for example, has its own solar power plants. It also bought large amounts of land up at the Apex Industrial Center in North Las Vegas, and the company plans to build out similar AI and data centers up there. It's a mixed bag. Evictions in Nevada are down 7% from last year, but housing advocates say they're still happening at rates higher than before the pandemic. This week, those housing advocates encouraged state lawmakers to rethink Nevada's eviction process again. Nick Summer reports.
COVID, dropped way down. We're in the 30,000s, and then we shot up into the 60s, and now we're probably going to be somewhere in the 50s by the end of the year.
While fewer families are facing eviction, many are still living paycheck to paycheck as rent, utilities, and other costs continue to strain household budgets. Jonathan Norman with the Nevada Coalition of Legal Services says several programs that help keep tenants housed are either ending or running out of funding, specifically the Emergency Housing Voucher Program.
I'm always worried about seniors, people who don't have resiliency to necessarily deal with a big change, adults with disabilities.
Housing groups are pushing lawmakers to revisit reforms during the next legislative session, arguing changes could provide more protections for renters facing financial hardship, like Assembly Bill 201 that expanded opportunities to seal eviction records, which passed the legislature but was vetoed by Governor Joe Lombardo. Val Thomason with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada pointed to the Hebron Apartments mass eviction involving low-income residents as an example of how quickly tenants can lose housing.
Half of them had paid their rent, so they were not legally allowed to be evicted, but they didn't understand the process.
The presentation also highlighted Assembly Bill 283, which would have shifted Nevada closer to the process used in other states by requiring landlords to file first.
In other states, that basically means that you get the paperwork that says go to court at this time, and you don't have to figure out the process.
That was Nick Summer reporting. In his veto message of these bills, Governor Lombardo said sealing eviction records was better left to a judge. He believes it could lead to more companies not renting to people with gaps in their history. Next on Politics Now, dire projections, the latest look at Lake Mead's water levels. And combating gangs in schools, a new pilot program that's being launched by CCSD.
You're watching Politics Now.
Lingering drought, low snowpack, it all helps point to increasingly dire water levels at Lake Mead. Right now, the lake's depth is 1,047 feet. Next month, though, it's expected to drop another 7 feet. Down the road, projections are getting increasingly lower. The lake's expected to drop 30 more feet by next summer, another 36 feet by the summer of 2028. Despite that, Southern Nevada will still be able to take water out of the lake. A long-term deal on water use still needs to be reached by states all along the Colorado River. Clark County School District is launching a pilot program to root out gang activity in schools. 8 News Now education reporter Joshua Piguero looks at how it'll work.
The Clark County School District Police Department partners with Metro's gang unit to help with policing schools. But the district is taking it a step further and launching a pilot program at 9 schools with the goal of teaching staff and teachers how to spot gangs.
We just began the first session of professional learning, which was school police kind of sharing their role.
CCSD Associate Superintendent Kevin McParland discussed the program last week in a Q&A with CCSD trustee Lydia Dominguez.
When kids go into the bathroom and tag something on the walls, how are we training our principals to see that and to identify that as a gang versus that's just a number 21?
Absolutely, the gang units are involved, and it's not just the principal, it's the principal, the AP, the counselors, the campus monitors, all those people that might see those behaviors and see those things in the school. So that is part of those look-fors.
The district named at that meeting 4 of the 9 schools participating: Cimarron Memorial High School, Arborview High School, Centennial High School, and Peterson Academic Center. Sunrise Mountain High School had its fair share of criminal activity this past school year. 2 guns were confiscated from students, and this report I obtained shows police ended up busting a marijuana vape pen drug ring. According to court records, administrators at Sunrise Mountain suspected drug sales. They searched 1 student in February and found 4 marijuana vape pens and $115. But he told police he was selling for another student. Police searched that student and found marijuana vape pens along with almost $2,500. Reporting at Sunrise Mountain High School, Joshua Piguero, 8 News Now.
Congress wants to level the playing field for college athletics. A patchwork of laws across the country gives some schools an advantage over others. News Nation's Vinay Samlat explains how a Senate bill pushes to try and fix that.
Lawmakers describe college athletics as the wild, wild west. It's an industry with billions of dollars and thousands of athletes. On Thursday, the Senate Commerce Committee took a step to try to tame it.
We need order and stability now.
The top Democrat and Republican on the committee, Senators Maria Cantwell and Ted Cruz, proposed legislation to set one federal standard for athletes to get paid, give athletes 5 years of eligibility with one transfer, guarantee women's sports and non-revenue generating sports equal roster spots, and require schools air local college football and basketball games on a local broadcaster that's free to watch.
They're canceling women's sports, they're canceling Olympic sports, track and field, tennis, and that is taking away opportunities.
But Senator Tommy Tuberville, a former college football coach, says the bill has the wrong priorities.
It gets too deep into the businesses of universities, conferences, athletic departments, while doing far too little to give the student athlete the stability and clarity that actually they need.
The two largest conferences in college sports, the SEC and Big Ten, say they don't support the bill. Senator Cruz says he wants to protect athletes and sports at smaller schools.
And if the alternative is do nothing and allow chaos to continue and college sports to be destroyed, I think that alternative is unacceptable.
So the bill passed out of the Senate Commerce Committee 19-9. It was bipartisan, but there are still some hurdles. It would have to pass the Senate with 60 votes, then go over to the House, pass the House, and get to the president's desk for him to sign before it becomes law. Vinay Simlat, News Nation, Washington.
And we're back after this.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Yesterday, the nation paused to celebrate and honor Juneteenth. Up in North Las Vegas, a Juneteenth flag was raised at City Hall, one of many events around Southern Nevada. As you know, Juneteenth marks the emancipation of the last enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas. It is now a federal and state holiday. Clark County leaders also hosted this special ceremony over at the iconic Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign, celebrating Juneteenth by honoring the legacy and freedom of resilience in our African American community. You can see the special lights on the sign there to mark Juneteenth. Thank you for watching Politics Now this week. We're back with you right here next week. Take care.